Gary Reynolds, Chief Investment Officer, is with me to give me some perspectives on how things have been throughout 2022 so far. Gary, hi. It doesn't seem so long ago that markets took a big hit, beginning of the pandemic, which was actually 2020. We're 2 years later down the line and some, and this week we saw another hit, the greatest since the beginning of that pandemic. Can you tell me, what have you seen and what's been happening?
I think you're in a period at the moment when you're going to get volatility because 2022 is proving something of a seminal year where I think a lot of the things that we've been used to, especially in financial markets, are coming to an end. Things like the assumption that low inflation is here forever, well, that's done and dusted now. The assumption that interest rates will remain low indefinitely, well, that's done and dusted now. And because of that, as you go into any transition, you will get volatility. But just to put this in context, Leo, you had a few percentage point drops earlier in the week compared to the way the market collapsed at the start of the pandemic. It was really a bit of a storm in the teacup. Nothing to worry about too much.
As I mentioned to James last week, time seems to be going pretty quickly now. There's been a lot of change going out throughout the year. We've had changes in government, we've had changes in the monarchy. How much more change can there be squeezed into 1 year? And what impact are these changes we're seeing having on the markets and Courtiers funds?
Well, some of the changes that have occurred were not changes you could necessarily predict. You could not have predicted that Boris Johnson's premiership would come to an end. It was difficult to predict that Liz Truss would be the next Prime Minister. You'd have got fairly long odds on that in the spring of this year. It was not expected that Putin would invade Ukraine. And in doing so, he's brought an end to the German policy of Ostpolitik, where they've used détente and trade to try and engage the Eastern Bloc, ex-Soviet countries, Russia in particular. But in doing so, Angela Merkel left her country seriously exposed to threats through Russia threatening to turn off gas or reduce the flow. So these are massive changes that we have experienced. But rapid change is not something new. So it's something that you've only got to look through history and you can see years where big changes come about. Wars, obviously, pandemics, obviously. 2020 was a big change because it's the first time we'd had a pandemic for over 100 years. And so you have to kind of get used to it. And what I would say to any investors looking at this is it's for these reasons. It's the fact that you can't predict things. And if anybody wants to read about this, Mervyn King, Lord King, ex-Governor of the Bank of England, John Kay, have written an excellent book called Radical Uncertainty, where they say we must get used to the fact that we live in a world where certainty is not a given. And so in that sense, 2022 is not really any different, Leo. There's just a few things that cropped up and we've had to deal with them that were unexpected. One of the big things for me has been the increase in interest rates, because I've been warning for some time that if these interest rates flip round, then holders of long dated gilts are going to get seriously hurt. Well, this year, if you were holding long dated gilts on the 1st of January, by now, you've lost 36% of your value. That's a huge fall, much worse than equities for an asset that's meant to be safe. So this 30-year secular bond market has come to an end, and thank goodness we were not holding anything long dated in any of our portfolios.
How does your approach to value investing fare in these times right now amid volatility? What opportunities might be being presented by change with regard to your value approach? And how do you see that this might unfold into the next 12 months or so?
Well, we found great value in a lot of stock prices through the last 2 or 3 months. And so if you look at the average price earnings ratios of either the equity content in the multi-asset funds or the global fund or the UK equity income fund, we're well below 10. So you're not, and as a benchmark, if the S&P 500 index, the world's biggest index, the index of the big American companies, if the price earnings ratio, i.e. the number of times that profit will go into the share price, is over 20, it's reckoned to be expensive. It's just below that now because of the sell-offs, but our price earnings ratios and our portfolios are less than 10, and our checks are that we are holding companies that have robust balance sheets, that are not over leveraged, and the reason for that is you want them to be able to survive any unforeseen crisis. And so that makes me very optimistic about the future. But I just would warn that I think you will get a lot of volatility in the next few months, and that's the price you'll have to pay for some very, very good long-term potential from the shares we're holding. So in summary, Leo, this is very positive, and I like the valuations that we're sitting on right now.
Thank you, Gary. Now, just to clarify, Courtiers' offices will be closed on Monday. We'll be back into work on Tuesday. And Gary, on that note, come Tuesday moving forward, do changes in the Monarchy change your thinking at all?
Not really, Leo. You know, we've got a symbolic monarchy that represents a constitutional head of state. The power is in government itself and the politicians we elect. I think the change is that she is pretty irreplaceable as a leader, who's been a super role model. And here's a great example of a life dedicated to service. Somebody who gave that pledge to serve when she came to the throne, and she has died fulfilling that in a most wonderful way. And I think that a lot of people will watch her funeral on Monday and be very, very grateful for the way in which she conducted herself through the ups and downs that have been through this last 3/4 of a century. So it's personal change in that she's not there. That's a great pity. And you know, I, like everybody else, I'm sure, wish the new king all the very best. But boy, has he got big boots to fill.
Gary, thank you very much. I will look forward to talking to you again soon.